Alrighty, today is December 15th, 2022. We're looking at the Euro US dollar on the 1 hourly. On my left hand side of the screen, I've got my buy side drawings on the buy side, and my right hand side, I've got the sell side drawings. Um, we are inside the last known unmitigated sell primary, okay? We've literally woken up to these higher prices yet again. We pushed up here aggressively. This was news, and we knew we had another news announcement coming in today. And sure enough, 530 kicks in, boom, sends us right up here into a deeper part of that unmitigated sell primary. And if we look to the left, like this is an arrow, this black line is the arrow. If we look to the left far enough, we can see what we've mitigated. If you see yesterday's video, you'll be able to see that too. I talk about this. This is the last known primary that I've been able to identify in this whole big higher time frame range. This is a weekly zone. It shows up on the weekly, the daily, the 4 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour. It shows up. It's huge. It's a monstrous zone. And this is the last one, the last sell primary that we're in, right? So, heavy weight. So what do we expect? Excuse me. What do we expect to happen? Well, we expect a mitigation and probably a pull away, right? So as I wake up, I analyze, what I see, and what I see is that we've mitigated here overnight, and halted right here where this arrow is pointing, right? Took liquidity from beneath this range initiation, break a structure, stacks liquidity, and then from this high down to this low, if it broke it on itself, creating a buy primary. Now the mitigation was here, under here. And so immediately, the first thing I do in the morning is I look at what did price zip through, where has price stopped, and if we look left, you can see that this was actually a buy primary that was, I believe, here. I believe that this was maybe here, or maybe it was actually here. I'm not certain. We can look and figure it out. I think maybe it was here. So anyway, this is the buy primary. We need to zoom in to figure it out for sure, but it doesn't matter because it's already been taken, right? So it doesn't really matter. It's just like, well, what are we coming back in to mitigate? And so it was that zone that got mitigated, and then they came back. If we push it out to this far, which shows where the mitigation occurred, we could then see that they came down, took out liquidity, and halted price and zipped up and broke structure. That is a transitional order block, and that means one thing to me: liquidity. It doesn't mean direction. It doesn't help me with direction, but it just helps me understand that that is going to become liquidity, and it's going to become liquidity relatively soon. Typically, it's relative to the chart that we're on and the time frame that we're on, but more often than not, these ones are taken pretty soon. They occasionally will leave them, but I'd say it's like 10% of the time or less that they'll actually leave them unmitigated for any kind of serious length of time. So when I see this huge monstrosity of a buy zone that's just been put in, right? Buy primary has just been put in right here, and it's mitigated a transitional order block, I'm thinking all day long that this zone is not going to hold, that this is a facade, right? Now, think about something else. We've just mitigated the last known unmitigated sell primary in that massive block, right? We just created a buy primary that's got taken out immediately. So what does that mean to you? To me, it means pretty much just one thing. Boom. That is a mitigation. That is the high. I expect lower prices from here. I do. I expect to take liquidity. I don't just expect now that this range, we can see it's quite large, but I actually do not expect this to hold whatsoever. And the reason is because of what's happened here. Now this could be forming, sure enough, for a pullback into here before we actually do continue high prices. But why create this and why do this in this manner? This is such a large zone that's got so many orders stacked in it that I'm not certain that what we've done over here is really relative to the amount of orders that were in here. If you see the incredible amount of time that we've spent in there versus we're just in here for a tiny little bit, in here for a tiny little bit, now we're actually in here. So if you see those circles that I've drawn versus this whole big circle, right, you can see that there was a lot more time here than there has been here. It's been more sporadic. So I believe that we will be pulling down. I believe that we'll be pulling down for more time in this box. More time spent, right? More time mitigating. And that, what does that mean? It probably means that this range is going to get taken, in my opinion. It probably means that we're going to come back down to something like down here before making a decision, initiating up or initiating down. It probably means that maybe this is going to hold, and this was all just the fluff, the liquidity for this gigantuous buy primary. Right? So that's my higher time frame look. We're in a very interesting period of time and at a very interesting time of year, December, when it's doing this kind of stuff as well. Now don't forget, this is strength for the euro. As we move up, the strength the euro is getting stronger, right? And the dollar is declining. But as we pull back, the dollar will be strengthening and the euro will be declining. So it's going to kind of inverse, right? What does that all mean? Well, for if you're interested in news and stuff like that, that would mean an awful lot, because now we've just shown some kind of strength for the bears, right? And I believe that the bears are going to start taking control of this market now and at least bringing us down into a deeper area. I could, of course, be all wrong, and it's all good if I am. It's just what I'm seeing here on the charts. Why create that big old buy primary just to snap it out? And this is a 1 hour outlook, 5 days go by and this is old news, you know what I mean? So let's see how this all plans out. Just giving you my information there. This was one of the best days ever. Not just for trading, but just because this was a really freaking great day. Great day of learning. There's so much to learn on these charts. So much to learn. So if you're not learning anything, look at your trades. Take a trade and look at it. Analyze everything about it. And don't be looking at it in the standpoint of what could I have done differently? How could I have made this a winner? Or, how could I have changed it in some way? Instead, just look at it from a learning standpoint. Why was it a good trade? Or why was it not a good trade to take? And forget the outcome. The outcome doesn't matter. The outcome is you could say it was random. It's not random, but the outcome does not matter. It's what you're doing in the process to get yourself in a trade. So look at that and rate it. Was it a high probability setup? Was it a low probability setup? What could you do differently next time if you are looking for higher probabilities or to take less trades or whatever it is you're doing, right? So anyway, there's a little ramble for you. Let's go down to the lower time frame. This is where all the action is. Just wanted to show you we've had this mitigation from the buy side. We did have this buy primary, which we do have to expect would hold. For me, you can see the wicks in here. This is where I was thinking things were going to hold, and literally as I woke up, price was just penetrating the low of that wick right here. See, there's a little buy order block in here, and as it was initiating away. And why was I thinking that? Because if this is a buy primary, then this sort of range here should hold somewhere in the middle, and it was the only range that looked good. And then I saw this at the bottom, and I'm thinking, well, if this middle one's not going to hold, then maybe this will hold. Sure enough, splat, it's gone right through it into that transitional, mitigating it in and out of there. Cool. Lower time frame. Okay, so this is going to get messy, but we're just going to go for it. All right, we'll start with my buy here because I took a little buy. Oh, actually, I think there was a sell first. Let's do it in order of trades. Because I think there was a sell. There it was. The sell here. Let's just line this all up. Yeah, so there was a sell here first. And then there was, let's just turn all this shit off. Do not disturb. Okay, sorry about that. So we're going to do my sell first. Okay, so as we're initiating away, first things first, I always do is just look at where we've come from and what's potentially happening, right? So I can see that we've mitigated, and I'm thinking to myself, if this is going to be a sell block, a sell primary, then what are they going to do towards the top end of this sell? They're going to create a sell primary, usually. And why are they going to do that? Because they're going to want to initiate lower prices, and that's how they initiate, right? We use sell primaries, taking liquidity to bring us down. And so that's what I start looking at initially, because I'm thinking to myself, well, are we going to come back up to here? Like, what's going on? You know, so I need to sort of see what's happened from the mitigation. And so in the mitigation, I'm able to see this: a range initiation, a break of structure, takes out the structure, comes back up, takes the liquidity, boom, off and away. An entry, there wasn't much of created inside this order block, right? I would have been thinking here would have been your entry, to look for like a change in character and then sell off, but that didn't happen. This was created for liquidity purposes. This grabbed it, so we got another one: range initiation, break of structure, and then this became a new primary. I didn't even see that till just now. Things happen, it's all good. But I did see this one. So here's another one: range initiation, stacks liquidity, breaks structure, comes straight back up and down. Now, where would you be looking at trading off of inside here? There's only two order blocks, right? So we had this one right here, and we had this one. Now, which one's the most high probability? Obviously the higher up one than the lower down one, right? So you just observe this get taken. You wouldn't even need to look for a change of character. You wouldn't even be worried about this. But you are anticipating that price is going to come back into here. Now, I've putting out these arrows because this was really helpful for me, but it might be helpful for you as well. In identifying when we're turning around, right? So we've got a sell primary, and we know we're going to come in back in here and have a reaction or a potential continuation of price, which is what I would be fully expecting, especially after that mitigation. So where is it going to happen? Is it going to happen as a transitional? Well, transitionals just become liquidity, so not really looking for a transitional, right? So let's see this first high. What does it mitigate? It mitigates something, yeah, 5 second maybe, but it makes it transitional, right? So it's not really something we'd be interested in. The second one, same dealio, whips through, transitional, very good mitigation on this one. And so if we'd have actually had a break in structure down below, we could have then factored in that this was going to hold. We would have needed a break in structure down here. And we'd have been thinking that they're going to get this later. They're just not going to come for it just yet. And then we get this high here, which is exactly the same. Basically, we don't even need that drawn on, but it's basically just equal highs. And then we get this. Boom. Comes up, mitigates something, right? Mitigates something, and then changes character. Takes the high, takes the low, right? And so where's your high? I mean, this is the kind of stuff we need to be looking at. What are we mitigating? Oh, we've mitigated something, and now we've changed character after this huge big run up. What does that create for us? It creates a higher time frame sell primary right there. And so if we expect this to be creating a higher time frame sell primary, we can also be on the lookout. If you didn't get in here, if you didn't enter on a change of character, we can also now be looking at, well, let's see, is there going to be another change, lower time frame sell primary form within this upper half of this potentially forming sell primary, right? That's how I would be looking at it. And sure enough, range initiation, break of structure, comes back in, takes out here, and it's gone. How could you have traded this? Well, it's all relative, isn't it? It's like, how would you have done it? You could have took the high, took the low. You'd be better off, I think, just taking a stop. Oops. Like a stop limit. But this one's ugly, I'm not gonna lie. This one's actually pretty tricky. So let's say you didn't get that one. That was actually a lot more complex than, this was a much more complex one to get into, and there was no opportunity really to get into that one anyway, unless you're doing those, like I said, a stop limit. Anyway, they push price down. They create this again, this sell primary, and here's another sell primary, and this is where I enter, right? Because I'm at the chart 720, 730, something like that. Well, actually, I'm here before, but I haven't seen this form. I haven't even had an opportunity to get in or anything like that. Like, this would have been a great entry, range initiation, stacks money, breaks structure, comes back in, takes that money, initiates away, breaks structure on itself, comes straight back into the literally the only looking sort of RIMC in the area. This would have been a gold trade to take. All you need to do is take the high, take the low, and enter, and you're in. You know, maybe a 3 pip stop, but price is moving so heavy, you'd likely have gotten all of that move. Then they bring price back up, right? So they're bringing price back up from here, and I'm thinking to myself, well, we got another sell primary, and we're just initiating very, very fiercely away. Let's take a look. We're just initiating price very aggressively. We know we've got that mitigation at the top, and so we're just going to expect continuation of price. This is probably one of the worst trades I've taken in a while. And I'll tell you why, but again, we had this primary form here. Here was the range that was created inside of there as it was forming, and so realistically, this was the absolute nuts right here is origin, and this is what I wanted to play off of, and this is what I saw. I saw the mitigation here. I saw they took from the high, took from the low, and I just entered here, because this was like the logical area for me. I got spanked immediately. It was a fantastic looking setup, really, but I'll show you why it was the worst trade ever to have taken, and it's all based on the buy side of my screen here. So let me pull it over so it's right here. What have we mitigated? That's the question. I've always got to be looking at that. What the hell have we mitigated? And then as you see what we've mitigated, you can see now we've mitigated a strong buy primary that, and this is weird, right? This is some weird stuff here, but this is strength in my eyes, and they did this on purpose. But this buy primary activated, right? The moment it came out of itself here, and then they just nibbled out of it, and then they did it all again. They took a range, initiation, break structure, stack liquidity, took all that liquidity, and then went and initiated. So they made an absolutely huge whopping buy primary, and then as soon as it broke out, just a nibble, they made a whole nother one. There's strength there. And in hindsight, I should have seen that. And so I didn't see that mitigation at the time. I was just focused on looking at sell primaries and trying to get involved. I can see the initiations away, they're strong, they're aggressive, and they make you want to get involved. Or they made me want to get involved. So I took a crappy trade. Now over to the buys. Now I'm thinking, well, what are we up to? We're in a very strong buy primary kind of area. If this is forming something like a buy primary, something like this, and prices are going to bob back up, maybe into this area here, or maybe even if this is just these two were just this is the primary or something. They're doing something here that's going to be buy primary, right? That's it doesn't matter really what high you're going to take from here and decide that's going to become buy primary. But it's like, so what do I look for? So I'm going to be looking for other buy primaries that form, lower time frame ones. And so I see this form here, and then I see this form, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? We've just made a buy primary right here. If everyone needs to see it, it's here, range, initiation, breaking this structure here, come back down. Slower time frame, sure, but it's valid. 15-second valid. Comes in, breaks structure again. This is a buy primary. They react out of it again. This was going to be the nuts. This would have been where we should have had the reaction from, the changing character. There literally wasn't a changing character, so we stayed out of this one. And then price zipped down and took liquidity from the buy primary. And so the primary becomes liquidity for another primary. That's a bullish action in my eyes. That's a very bullish thing to do. So I'm thinking to myself, well, we might be likely coming back up to here. There's lots of unmitigated stuff. There's there's actually a 1 minute sell primary up in this area. So I was looking at that. Let me just go full screen on this. Okay. And so as I saw that, this buy primary form and come in, break structure, but I was thinking to myself, well, that could be just liquidity, right? We created a buy primary that couldn't hold on itself, and yet what was that created for? And then I think to myself, well, it's probably created for this, isn't it? Like, think about it. Like, they've made another primary that couldn't break structure, and yet down below we've got this primary on a primary, and I'm just, primaries everywhere, you know? And so I'm just thinking, I guess it's like FOMO that gets me in on this one, but I'm just looking for a reaction. Where would I want a reaction from inside of this this block, this range that's formed? So they initiate it up, boom. Then they initiate up again, and then immediately as they break out of the primary, they create that range. So this was, for me, the range I wanted to play off of. So as soon as I saw that strong reaction zipping up, I just put my order in where I could fit it, and I think I got 3.3 pip stop loss on this one. I just wanted to sort of get involved with that order block at the bottom, and I was expecting sort of that to wick in and go, and that's kind of what I had. I got taken in, and it got a bit of an initiation away. I can't remember if I was involved in it getting this high. I think it wasn't. I think it had already gone that high, pulled back, took me in, and then I think I got an initiation about 1 hour maybe. They took me out straight away for a minus 1 hour, and it was just the wrong move, you know. It was what it is, you know. Hindsight's easy to say that was a poo trade as well, but there's two poo trades, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what the bloody hell is going on? Now we can really start to delve deep and understand. So I'm now on my sell view, right? And so actually we need both charts up to see this properly. So I'm on 15 seconds, right? And I'm gonna get the charts looking like pretty similar, right? So you can see my cursor is shared on both sides, right? So this high, this buy primary is really what I want to talk about. This buy primary failed, and I didn't notice this in the moment. But if I had noticed this in the moment, once it had failed, I would have realized what had been created. And to see what had been created would have got me out of this trade and not into this trade. And again, we can say that it was my focus this morning that was off. My brain wasn't thinking in the way that I needed it to think, because I was so focused on what I wanted to see. I was seeing buy primaries, and I was only looking at that and not looking at what just formed. And that is why having both screens is so valuable. So this one could have been avoided quite easily, as could have that sell. That sell could have been avoided, and that buy could have been avoided. So let's just look at why on this buy at least. So this one has failed by closing below itself, and in the process of its failure, it had created this. I'll do it on this left side. It pushed up and took out a range and created that sell primary, because look, we had that range initiation, breaker structure. Here, I've got it all drawn here on this side, but I didn't have it here, right? And so I wasn't looking both sides. And that's all it was. So it created this sell primary right here. Here's the sell primary that formed. That would have got me out, because I should be thinking, holy shit, you don't buy into a sell primary? Who buys into a sell primary? No one. Not me. Where's the absolute nuts for this sell primary to mitigate from? Right there. What happens? It mitigates from there. And so now over to the sell side of things. So and we'll go full screen now, because we don't need to see the buy side at this moment. So as we're seeing this lovely sell primary, and we see what it nibbled into, boom. The only thing now we're thinking is, well, if this is a sell primary forming from this low to this high, what are we looking for? A sell primary that forms in the upper end, in the upper quadrant of it. And sure enough, what do we get? Range, initiation, breaker structure, creates liquidity, they come up, boom, creates that primary, right? And now we know, here's our high. As price is working down, we're expecting this still to form the sell primary. And so as they're manipulating and doing what they need to do, what is this? This is all the same stuff. This is all the liquidity. Here's the range. Here's the breaks of structure at the bottom. This is all just liquidity. And this, they come in to the absolute nuts location and they create this, again, another primary in this area. And so we've got primaries on primaries on primaries on primaries on primaries. It's gold, it's good, it's looking real well. And it was at this point here, as I see this, the nuts mitigation occur, I'm like, I just want to get in. I didn't need to see really a buy primary form. Let's go down to 5 seconds. Where is it? Over here. I didn't need to see that buy primary form, but I did. Range, initiation, break structure, they came in, took liquidity, and boom, I went in absolutely immediately. In hindsight, I could have gotten in on some sort of a change of character, but there wasn't any in this area really that was clean or fluid. You could have said that was the high and that's the low, but it's weird. And so you could say that this is the change of character as well. So it's a double whammy. Not only is it sell primary, but it's a change of character as well. They all are really, but this was the only one that we had, the first one that I could see it was clean in this area. And so that was our mitigation at the top. And I put a order right here. Didn't get it. I should have had a stop. I should have had stop limit. What happened was I was literally scrambling to get my tool up to trade off of it, scrambling at the charts. It came down here, bobbed straight back up here, and I'm like, sell, sell, sell. I'm just trying to get market sell. But the way TradingView is, it fucks my numbers every time. It's so stupid. I got to type them in manually every single freaking time. I got to fix that. I got to make something much more fluid than that. Maybe have my broker up on another window and do it that way. I like having everything clean, and I like having everything on TradingView, and that's the reason I do it that way. But it's a pain in the ass today because I missed this beautiful trade. I mean, that's a 3-pip beautiful 10R trade. Instead, I did something I wouldn't normally do, but FOMO, I had those losses, and this is a fucking stupid thing to do as well, but I did it. Just clicked sell. I could see we're initiating away quite aggressively, and I just pressed sell. This is exactly what it looked like to me on the chart. I just pressed sell with a 3-pip stop. Random location, saw it was initiating away, just wanted in. Is the truth. I just wanted to get in that market, and because of my location, I went and put my take profit right at the bottom here. At the nearest low because of my location. If I'd have entered up here, I would have had 10R all day long. So I'm not worried about that. 3.5R is better than nothing. Still profitable on the day, and that's really all that matters, right? But that was a freaking lucky one to connect with. But it's like understanding. Once you're following intention and understanding of the market and what's going on, then things start to click, and you can actually, you can find entries. You can you'll be able to find entries. This is an interesting range that forms straight after, and so I'm suspicious that this is all going to become liquidity. And the reason I'm suspicious is because here's the range that we're taking liquidity from, and really this is the primary, right? This is pulled down, and this should be the primary, but they took liquidity here, and then this should have been the mitigation and everything else, but then they came up for more, right? This isn't really liquidity at that time, but they came up for more and they mitigated, so it was a good mitigation, and sure enough, it is a primary, but it's a fishy one. It's like double liquidity on toast. That's what I sort of said to myself. Well, look, you've just taken the liquid from here, the liquidity from there, but then you're doing it again from itself here just for a mitigation. Why? So it just seemed a bit odd to me, like not what I was familiar with, not what I'm used to seeing. And so immediately I did write suspicious sell primary could become liquidity. And then we initiated quite aggressively away. So there's my trades on the day. This in here is very typical of when we initiate away and then New York hours. This is all fucking New York, because New York is manipulation nation. Yes, we will initiate. Lots of times we'll initiate price in one direction or in big moves, but they love to do the manipulation. Whereas London hours, I've noticed there's more often than not more fluidity to what's going on, more swings and stuff like that. Whereas like I find New York does range a lot. It likes to accrue positions. My guess is that that during New York hours, that's where money comes into the market or is exiting the market, and then the actual moves are controlled by the UK. And don't get me wrong, everyone's involved with everything. So if anyone's buying or selling in New York hours, they are most certainly privy to what the hell is going to happen in the UK during those hours. And it's logical, actually, that they would do it like that, because that way they can accrue their position sizes, allow the market to move at later times, so it's not their responsibility, it's not their fault, it's not them driving the market. They were asleep in bed. You know what I mean? It's that kind of mentality. And I think it's like, not blame, but it's that style of thinking, I believe, is what happens there a lot. Plus, it's New York. We like to manipulate. It's just sort of something they do. So anyway, there's my trades for the day. I hope you guys are smashing it. I hope you guys are crushing it. Very, very complex, very, very tricky. But once you understood it, it all clicked, you know? Lots of manipulation, lots and lots of manipulation with tons of primaries. And when it's like that, you just got to keep your wits with you and look at the higher time frame thing and start to piece things together. This was the biggest clue right here, is that when we clicked onto this one and used this as liquidity, things started making sense for me as far as direction and getting in correctly. But I saw this late. I didn't see this in the moment. Who comes to the charts is very important. I didn't come to the charts my regular self today. I came in with a bit of haze in my brain from the night before. So it's all good. It's all good. I'm learning too. So have a great day. Wish you all the best of trading. Aloha.